Have you ever sort of stopped and wondered what's really driving some of these big, fast changes we see in big tech? Okay, let's unpack this because today we're doing a deep dive into some, well, pretty significant news coming out of Microsoft, specifically their Xbox division. We've got a detailed report here from the Indian Express that actually tells us quite a lot about what's going on behind the scenes. So our mission here really is to look past just the headlines. We want to get into the why behind these potential job cuts. What does it tell us about Microsoft's bigger strategy? And how does it all fit into what's happening across the whole tech industry right now? It's about getting to those key insights, without getting totally buried in information.
Yeah, and what's fascinating here is how these things, they might seem like isolated events, but they often point to much larger underlying forces. Really understanding those forces is, well, it's absolutely key to figuring out where these giants are headed. And the whole industry, really.
Absolutely. So, okay, let's start with the immediate news from Xbox then. Microsoft is reportedly gearing up for another round of layoffs. Word is managers over at Xbox are expecting, well, substantial cuts. Could be as soon as next week, which puts us in early July, right after Microsoft's fiscal year wraps up. But, and this is important for you to know, there's no official announcement from Microsoft on these specific cuts. Not yet.
And that word "another" is really crucial context, isn't it? If these cuts do happen, this would actually be the company's fourth round of layoffs in just the last 18 months. We've already seen 3 major rounds just in 2024, which even led to them closing down some subsidiaries. So, yeah, it's a quick pace of change.
Wow, the fourth round, that is a lot of churn in a short time. And for Xbox specifically, the report says the division's been under severe pressure from Microsoft execs to really amp up its profit margins. What does that mean practically? Especially after that. I mean, a massive Activision Blizzard deal in 2023. That was, what, $69 billion?
Right. Huge. Well, it implies a pretty strong push for quicker, higher returns on that investment. When you spend that kind of money, the expectation is that the part you bought and the division managing it needs to start contributing more to the bottom line and fast.
Okay.
And we have seen this kind of impact before, specifically in the gaming division. Xbox laid off 650 people back in September 2024. And Phil Spencer, the Xbox chief, he said in an internal memo back then that those cuts were because of the post-acquisition team structure.
So linking it directly back.
Exactly. It's not just random cost cutting. It's about integrating, optimizing these newly merged parts. And that often means, trimming roles or functions that don't quite fit the new higher profit goals. And interestingly, those earlier cuts mostly hit corporate roles, support functions, tied directly to that big acquisition.
Okay, so it's integration, profit pressure. But this isn't just an Xbox story then, is it? What's the wider picture at Microsoft? Because I remember reading earlier this month, June 2025, reports that Microsoft was planning to cut thousands of jobs, maybe especially in sales.
That's right. These cuts, generally, they're seen as part of Microsoft's, let's say, latest move to shrink its workforce a bit, while at the same time, they're pumping billions, literally billions, into AI development and infrastructure, too, like data centers.
So big shift in investment.
A huge shift. It's like they're reevaluating where the real value creation is going to be. Even traditional, maybe profitable roles are being weighed against the potential they see in AI. It's a strategic bet on transformation, not just incremental growth. And yeah, while early reports mentioned sales, the source was careful to say the cuts may not solely impact sales teams, and that the timing might also change. So it feels like a pretty fluid company-wide thing.
Right. And looking back even a bit further, May 2024, they'd already announced cuts impacting over 6,000 people. But back then, it was mostly product and engineering roles, wasn't it? Sales and marketing were kind of spared at that point.
Exactly. It shows how the focus of restructuring can change depending on what the strategic priority is at that moment.
Yeah.
And just for scale, as of June 2024, Microsoft had about 228,000 employees globally. Around 45,000 of those were in sales and marketing.
Okay.
So while thousands sounds like a massive number, and it is for the people affected, it helps it see it in the context of their total workforce size. But still, even a small percentage cut means thousands of jobs.
And that brings up a really important question, doesn't it? Is this just a Microsoft thing, or are we seeing something, bigger across the whole tech industry?
Oh, it's definitely not just Microsoft, no. The tech industry overall has been, well, the report says, reeling from mass layoffs. There's a site, layoffs.fi, that tracks this stuff. And as of, June 26th this year, 2025, they've tracked 147 tech companies laying off over 63,000 employees.
Wow.
Just this year alone, that's a pretty big number. Suggests a wider market adjustment is happening.
Over 63,000 people. Those are staggering numbers for the whole industry. And the Force gives Intel as an example, right? It's
Yeah.
saying they've laid off the most employees this year.
Yeah.
Back in April, reports said Intel planned to cut nearly 20% of staff, something like 22,000 jobs.
Yeah, that's a huge number, not just trimming, like you said. That's a major reshaping of the company.
So what was Intel's reasoning?
Well, Intel claimed it was part of a bigger strategy. They wanted to streamline management and also rebuild an engineering-driven culture.
Okay, engineering-driven culture. What does that signal typically?
It often means pivoting away from maybe a more spread out, diversified approach, getting leaner, focusing resources back on core R&D, core products. So less about just cutting costs everywhere and more about investing heavily in specific high priority areas. Even if it means cutting jobs in areas that are profitable but not central to that future vision, it's about agility, competitiveness.
Right, so putting it all together, these definitely don't feel like isolated incidents, do they? You've got specific pressures from huge deals like Activision Blizzard at Microsoft. You have these broad strategic shifts towards massive AI investment. And then companies like Intel trying to streamline and refocus. We're seeing these patterns of pretty significant workforce cuts across the board. It feels strategic, not just purely economic belt-tightening. Okay, so if we try to pull all these different threads together, what's the picture that emerges? For Microsoft, these latest Xbox layoffs or potential layoffs seem tied into this larger restructuring, driven partly by needing better profits after that big Activision buy, and partly by this huge strategic pivot, investing billions in AI and data centers.
Exactly. And if you connect that to the bigger picture, you can really see how these decisions, which look like individual company choices, are actually part of a profound reshaping of the whole tech industry.
A reshaping. How so?
It's like a market recalibration. Capital money is being moved aggressively towards these newer high potential areas, AI especially, and maybe away from older structures or businesses with lower margins. Companies are actively shifting resources, shifting people to chase what they believe is the next big wave of growth. They're making huge bets on the future of tech.
And that does raise a really important question, something for you listening to maybe think about. What do all these strategic shifts actually mean? This intense focus on AI, the pressure on profits after massive acquisitions, this industry-wide streamlining, what does it ultimately mean for the future of jobs in tech? And maybe just as importantly, what kind of innovations can we expect to see? If companies are so laser-focused on AI in their core areas, how might that shape the actual products and services that, define our digital lives in the years ahead? How will these really bold investments truly pay off and reshape things? That's definitely something worth mulling over.